All right, good morning. All right, now I know it's been a few weeks since we were actually on track with the study and teachings we've been doing here at home on America's Promise. We started with, we're teaching about Babylon and Jeremiah. You remember that? All right, that was actually 29 September, so way back then. Don't worry, I've got a little refresher for you. So in the meantime, we've been very busy here at America's Promise. We did get the newsletter out. So be looking for that out in the mail. For you digital subscribers, you should already have it. All right, so we got that out. We've got church here in Idaho. It's wintry mix. That's been in the, right, so up here we're already looking at winter weather. There's already cars with snow on them. You guys seen those? All right, yeah, and we've got all the wood chopped. The stove is going this morning. Everybody's nice and cozy. So we've been very busy. And then, of course, we did have the conference at the beginning of October. So we've been shaking and moving here quite a little bit. And there's also something else we had going on. This is for our live audience. We have a brand new one here, brand new member of the church, brand new member of the family. So this is Abigail. And she's not doing any preaching this morning, but she is 1 month old. And that one's number 7. And that's the last one. Okay, 7 is enough, let me assure you. 7, perfection, right, yeah, you've got 7, I figured. And after 7, you run into serious logistical issues, like seats at the table. You're going to have to start getting school buses or transit vans, which I already have one of each. So yeah, after 7, you start running. I mean, car seats start becoming a problem. But yeah, 7. Arrows in a quiver, isn't that right? Yep, okay, so we've been busy here. So, obviously, so now we're back on track. So, all right, so a month ago we were studying the message of Jeremiah, and I'll be doing a brief review in order to get us all up to speed again, all right? I know it's been a while. So, we saw that Jeremiah was to give a message to the children, to God's children, about the impending Babylonian captivity, all right? That's what goes on in the first part of the book. And we also know he was reluctant to do so, particularly because of his age. But God had him, he put his words in his mouth. And of course, Jeremiah's message included prophecies about destruction and captivity, but also that a building and a planting would follow. And remember, we said that some preachers, even modern teachers, surmise that Jeremiah actually failed in his mission because they can see the destruction as a matter of history as far as the city. But the building and planting, they don't see any follow-through on those prophecies. So, of course, we understand the building and planting, right? We understand what that is. Of course, King Zedekiah's daughters, the nations of Israel that moved north and west, right? So Jeremiah's message spans quite a few chapters in the book. And by the time we get to chapter 29, we read some instructions that God gave through the prophet Jeremiah to the people that were to be in the Babylonian captivity. And we went over these things last time we were here talking about Jeremiah. We actually read through these verses last time, and then in those verses we found a few things, some points of instruction. And you'll remember, when you read these verses, you'll come up with these things. And Jeremiah instructed the people to settle in under the Babylonian captivity, to build houses, plant gardens, and live peacefully in Babylon. Okay, that's one of the things you'll find as instructions in those verses. Jeremiah also told them to seek the Lord with all their hearts while in the captivity. He also told them to pray for the city of Babylon, because if it thrived, they would thrive as well. Okay? All right? Also, he said, ignore false prophets who promised an early release. Okay, and that was a little bit of a contention there in the Babylonian captivity. Of course, I would extend that nowadays to ignore false prophets concerning an early release from our current Babylonian captivity, and of course, means of escape, right? That's a big problem nowadays. Of course, also, they were to have children and grow in number while in Babylon. Okay, this instructions to Israelites, well, Judeans, I know, God's children. Of course, what else? Act like a Christian. Do good things for the city of Babylon. Do good things while in Babylon, right? So we had this table we put up last time. It was these points that we saw in Jeremiah's instructions in chapter 29. And of course, after this, I showed this slide last time, and I asked you guys out there if this sounded like good advice. Of course, if our current captivity is God ordained, then we should look to old Israel's situation as a symbol and type and obey these instructions just as they did, just as they were told to do, right? All right, and we looked at Jeremiah's situation and the Israel in greater detail, and by the time we did that, we were in chapter 32, which is where we'll be picking up today. So we went over these verses last time, but we'll cover them real quickly. Jeremiah 32, verse 1 and 2. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord in the 10th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, which was the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar. For then the king of Babylon's army besieged Jerusalem, and Jeremiah the prophet was shut up in the court of the prison, which was in the king of Judah's house. Okay, so the enemy has mobilized against the Judah kingdom, and Jeremiah's message by this time, as we can see, has already been ignored, and it seemed to be a highly unpopular message because it seems he's been thrown into prison for it. Okay, and of course, verse 3 through 5 will tell us why. For Zedekiah the king of Judah had shut him up, saying, Wherefore dost thou prophesy and say, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will give this city into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall take it. Now notice, there are no qualifiers in that verse. This happens because God said it will come to pass. And Zedekiah king of Judah shall not escape out of the hand of the Chaldeans, but shall surely be delivered into the hand of the king of Babylon, and shall speak with him mouth to mouth, and his eyes shall behold his eyes. And I'll remind you that Chaldeans is an ancient word for Babylonians. Babylonians, okay? And he's going to see the king of Babylon face to face, and shall lead Zedekiah to Babylon, and there shall he be until I visit him, saith the Lord. Though ye fight with the Chaldeans, ye shall not prosper. So no wonder Jeremiah was in trouble. No wonder he was doing time in the big house, because he brought this message straight to the king. As you can imagine, it wasn't very popular with him either, and of course invited the ire of King Zedekiah. And you'll notice here that if you inspect the verses here at the end, it says that you will fight Babylon, but you will not win. Okay? You can struggle. It's not going to happen. This will happen. And of course, there's a little composite, of course, of the message that Jeremiah gave throughout the years over and over and over again. And of course, we know the story. It fell on deaf ears. All right? And of course, the next few verses detail the Jeremiah's purchasing of land, which we'll look at later. That is actually, Jeremiah has the faith that they will be delivered from this Babylonian captivity, and he bought the land. Of course, the recording of the deed and the proof of it is the next few verses. But we're going to look at verses 17 and 21, 17 through 21. I'll read those here. Ah, Lord God, behold, thou hast made the heaven and the earth by thy great power, and stretched out their arm, and there is nothing too hard for thee. Thou showest loving kindness unto thousands, and recompense the iniquity of the fathers into the bosom of their children after them. The great, the mighty God, the Lord of hosts is his name. Great in counsel, and mighty in work, for thine eyes are open upon all the ways of the sons of men, to give every one according to his ways, and according to the fruit of his doings, which has set signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, even to this day, and in Israel, and among other men, and has made thee a name at this day. So you notice, you'll find this repetition often in the Bible, that God asserts himself as being the Almighty, merciful. And of course, he reminds his children of our history at all times. And has brought forth thy people Israel out of the hand of Egypt with signs and with wonders and with a strong hand and with a stretched out arm and with great terror. Notice he's talking about a previous captivity. Okay, he's talking about previous captivity and reminding us what he did for us then. You see, he's reciting to us our own history. That's the breakdown of modern ministers. You see, kingdom ministers realize when we read this, we're reading about our own people's history. So these are instructions to us that God did deliver our people once, and he'll do it again. Okay, in spite of our current captivity. All right, now look at Jeremiah 22 and 23. And has given them this land, which thou didst swear to their fathers, and them a land flowing with milk and honey. And they came in and possessed it, but they obeyed not thy voice, neither walked in thy law. They have done nothing of all that thou commandest them to do. Therefore thou hast caused all this evil to come upon them. Okay. So this is the message today for our people here in America then. Is it not? Because we understand our own history. God delivered our fathers out of the bondage of Europe, not only from religious persecution or ecclesiastical bondage, such as the Roman Catholic Church, right? But also from bondage economically as well. If you'll read The Light and the Glory and several histories of our people at the founding of this nation, they actually had to gain passage to this country by agreeing to work it off. So they were in dire straits no matter what, economically and religiously. Okay, so God brought us out of that. And then what? Well, those people founded the United States of America, and they started it all off by doing what God had commanded them to do, right? Look at verse 23. And they came in and possessed it, what? The new land that God had promised to our fathers. They obeyed not thy voice, but they obeyed not thy voice or walked in thy law. They have done nothing of all that thou commanded them to do. Therefore thou hast caused all this evil. What evil? The Chaldean invasion to come upon them. Okay. So, God brought our people in this land by the millions, and we turned around and actually did what Israel of old did. You see the parallels? It's right there. And this is not preached. I know it's simple to us, but this is not preached anymore. Not at all. And what did he say? Therefore thou hast caused all this evil to come upon them. There is absolutely no other reason told to us in this Bible for our troubles other than we've disobeyed God. That's always the cause, that we did not walk in his law, and he brings the trouble upon us. There's no other reason for Israel's trouble but that. I defy you to find another reason. You can blame it on other races, you can blame it on cosmic super beings, all you want. But here, God's laying the blame at the feet of his own children and their actions against him. Okay? And that's why I actually feel a little sorry for the people that spend night and day fighting to escape our current Babylonian captivity, because they somehow have the mistaken idea that if they can expose the conspiracy of all the evil in the Babylonian system, that will deliver us. No, that's simply not true. The thing that will deliver us is our turning from our own evil ways, unless we forget. This is a national message, a national call to repentance. This is not, Jeremiah is not preaching for the conversion of Babylon, is he? Nor is he preaching personal salvation. This is a national call of repentance, a turning around. God's not calling for the conversion of Babylon. God is calling for the destruction of Babylon. And this current Babylon is being used at the very end of the age, that the same way this old Babylon was used here in the time of Jeremiah, for the punishment and chastisement of God's people who turned away from him. Right? This, like I said, it's not good news, but that's where we're at. And this is what Jeremiah had to tell the people in his day, the same thing I'm telling our people in this age, at this end of the age. In verses 24 through 25 in Jeremiah 32, behold the mounts. That word mounts there can be translated engines. Engines. Behold the mounts, they are come into the city to take it, and the city is given into the hand of the Chaldeans. Now notice that city is what? What city are we talking about? Jerusalem. Jerusalem. So keep that in mind. So somehow, some way, the Babylonian army is mobilized and actually invaded the city, that city. So, of course, the parallel is the New Jerusalem is now under the Babylonian captivity known as Mystery Babylon. Okay, we'll keep going. You'll see these are all parallels that fight against it because of the sword and of the famine and of the pestilence, and what thou hast spoken has come to pass. And behold, thou seest it, and thou hast said unto me, O Lord God, buy thee the field for money, and take witnesses, for the city is given into the hand of the Chaldeans. So the Jerusalem of old was given to Babylon, right? Babylon had control. Of course, like I said, that is engines for mounts. So in other words, the engines of war had already begun against the kingdom of Judah at this time, okay? And the invasion had begun already. Don't think of engines as literal combustion engines. Okay, that's like found in tanks and ships and mechanized infantry, but rather a means to invade, the means to war. Yes, and of course you'll know horses and chariots in Bible prophecy symbolize war, warfare, or great military power. Okay, so great military power has been mobilized against Judah. All right? And notice this, God has said the city is given into the hands of the Chaldeans, the enemy. The enemy has control of Jerusalem. The enemy has control of New Jerusalem. All right? Okay. Now, if we consider that old Israel's situation is the same as what we find here currently in America, it would mean that the current Chaldeans, or America's enemies, are already among us. Now, does anyone think that's the case right now? Okay, all right. Now, for those of you out on YouTube, for the benefit of those, everyone here in the audience is nodding and agreeing, but in case you are confused, and in case you do not think that they're among us, or that's simply not the case, or you're just confused by what I just asked, I will remind you of the kingdom parable of the tares and the wheat, found in Matthew 13, verses 24 through 30. Remember, the field is the world, and where are the tares and the wheat found? Growing together until the harvest has come, right? Or until the great return of Christ, right? He'll do the separating. All right, so naturally, here in the kingdom, the good and evil are found together until Christ has come. It has indeed been given into the hand of our current Chaldean enemies, right? Does Mystery Babylon control America using economic, political, and military power? Okay, there's election on TV, right? It's all over. As a matter of fact, it's sad, but Babylon has gotten so powerful that she doesn't mind being exposed and showing her hand. At this point, it's out of control, isn't it? Out of control. And I would remind you to vote as a kingdom citizen. Maybe not for the nationals if you don't want to, but at least for your own local government. Local government, right? I'd like a few potholes repaired and things like that, wouldn't you guys? Okay. So speaking of end-time prophecy, we're actually going to close with some end-time prophecy today. So we're going to drop down to verse 36 in Jeremiah 32. And now, therefore, okay, so the captivity's come. We know what to do. We know what to behave. Why it's come. We know how to behave. And now, thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, concerning this city, Jerusalem, wherefore you say, it shall be delivered into the hand of the king of Babylon by the sword and by the famine and by the pestilence. Behold, I will gather them out of all countries, whither I have driven them in mine anger and in fury and in great wrath, and I will bring them again unto this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely. Bring them again. Them who? Israel. Now, we're not in Jeremiah 33 yet, are we? No? All right. 38 through 42. And they, Israel of course, shall be my people, and I will be their God. And I will give them one heart and one way. Who's the way? Christ. That they may fear me forever for the good of them and of their children after them. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, that I will not turn away from them to do them good, but I will put my fear in their hearts, that they shall not depart from me. Yea, I will rejoice over them to do them good, and I will plant them in this land, assuredly with my whole heart and with my whole soul. For thus saith the Lord, like as I have brought all this great evil upon this people, so will I bring them all the good that I have promised to them. All right. Now, what does that mean? Well, this can easily be understood as part of, well, literally all of, the new covenant, right? And of course, that's promised to the house of Israel and Judah. This is obviously end-time prophecy, this new covenant, because this kind of relationship between God and his people was not fulfilled at this time. It was not fulfilled in the Old Testament, as a matter of fact. This is a prophecy. It will come to pass, but it did not come to pass in the Old Testament, and not even when the Judah kingdom came back to the land under Ezra and Nehemiah. They did not have this relationship with God yet. Now you understand the prophecies of regathered Israel and Judah in one land. They'll be given a new heart, one way to salvation, right? The king's way, the king's highway, right? So this relationship is future. Of course, students of Bible prophecy will know that the two sticks must first be joined, and then the people would have salvation through Christ. Okay, so this is the new covenant. So God is telling us this. What does this mean? He has seen to it that our turning away from him has put us in Babylonian captivity. But the ray of hope we have, that he will not continue to do evil for ever. He will bring upon them, his children, all the good that I have promised them. Where you can read about these promises, I would suggest the Old Testament. What is good is coming our way? Well, a release from the Babylonian bondage, for one, and of course, the kingdom. The kingdom is what's been promised to Israel. All right? Well, our current captivity then will not end on our own timetable. It doesn't end by our own means. It's God ordained, and the end is God ordained as well. But we understand what God has said in these verses, and this is a little introduction of where we're going with this Babylon thing. What God has said is he's told us why we're in captivity. He told us who is our captors. He's told us how they made their way in and insinuated themselves into power, right? He's told us that we turned away from his law and we will be going to captivity and we will be under the control. You remember the prophecies we read earlier about the daughter of Babylon, or the daughter of Jerusalem, daughter of Zion? Go into the field and dwell even with Babylon. All matter of prophecy. And then, of course, we understand that God will bring us out and give us the kingdom. The Israel people will be restored. So what we'll have to do now, if we solidify these verses like this, these great promises here, and of course you could keep reading in Jeremiah 33, and it will reiterate the new covenant, okay, and it will tell you the terms of the new covenant. But now we're going to have to inspect these verses and weigh them against what people are telling us now about the end of the age and about the end of Babylon and about the end of Babylonian captivity. As a matter of fact, some people are saying that America is Babylon, right? And if these people are not who we say they are, who we say these are us, right? Anglo-Israel. If these people here are the Jewish people and America's Babylon, then that would mean that in this age, the Jewish people have to be in captivity in this country. Does that make any sense? No. We're going to have to start investigating false prophecies concerning Babylon next week. That's what we're going to do. And of course, what did Jeremiah tell us to do with those false prophets? Ignore them. False prophets who promise an early release or means of escape, if you will. There's more and more preaching on that now, more than ever. All right, that's where we'll close today. I apologize for the brevity. We have been very busy. Well, we're back on track now, so we've got a long winter's worth of good Mystery Babylon preaching. So I hope I'm excited about it, and I hope you guys are too. So we'll end there,